So in this video, I will illustrate IPv6 OSPF routing, how we can configure that on the vyos router. This two vyos routers are connected together. The show interface has one interface on both sides. This guy's a clone, so he's got Ethernet 4 and Ethernet 0. This is the original one. I cloned it, so it renames the interface. So let's go ahead and configure IPv6 addresses. There's a little trick to that. If you go do set interface Ethernet 0, and then if you do IPv6 address, it'll give you two options, auto config, EUI64. So you don't want to choose either one of those right now. For this, instead of doing IPv6, you would do address, and then you do question mark, it'll let you configure IPv6 address right here. So it's just a CLI thing for vyos. So here we'll configure 12:1 for vyos 1/64 commit. And on vyos 2, we'll go configure set interface Ethernet 4, and do not specify IPv6 address, just do address, and do 12:2/64. Again, IPv6 is a 128-bit compared to IPv4, which is 32 bits. So 64 is a default network that IPv6 recommends to use. You don't want to go lower unless you are an ISP, or higher unless you want to go subnet for your branches. Okay, now let's run a ping to make sure that we got show interface, we got 12:2, 12:1, ping 12:1 is good, which is ourselves, and 2 is also good. Now let's configure OSPF. Configure set protocol OSPF. Now if you do question mark, you're going to choose v3, not OSPF. And then you're going to do area 0, and then you're going to do network. So you commit, you do area 0 first on this side, and then you do network by choosing an interface, and you have only one interface here. Commit. Do the same thing, set interface, set protocol OSPF, set protocol OSPFv3, area 0, and then interface Ethernet 4, area 0, commit. Show IPv6 OSPFv3 neighbors. There you go. You have your neighbor up. Show IPv6 OSPF neighbor. Your neighbor is up. Now let's exchange some routes. Show IPv6 routes. Got connected because OSPF is not advertising anything, so let's configure a loopback. Set interface or dummy interface done 0. Address. This one, let's do 11:11/128. It's a loopback or a dummy interface. Set protocol OSPF. Let's advertise this route. V3 interface dum0 dummy 0 area 0 commit show IPv6 routes. We should see show IPv6 interface, OSPF v3 interfaces, 11.11. It's not showing up yet. Let's see what's going on. So here's what is going on. I got the route. That we advertise. The reason it was not advertising is show IPv6. Now see, this guy has a router ID 202222, and the reason it got that is because it had a loopback configured with the IPv4 address. So when we configured it on vyos 1, it did not have this. So let's redo this again, reproduce it, because initially it did not have it. I had to delete the protocol and redo it. So unless you get the OSPF router ID, it's not going to advertise the routes, even though the neighbors will come up. So you have to make sure the router ID is up on both sides. And to do that, you have to configure the loopback with an IPv4 address. That's the vyos thing. Some routers, like Cisco and Juniper, will let you manually configure the router ID, not vyos. So let's redo this. Delete to show how to delete protocol OSPF v3, delete interface loopback address. Just gonna reproduce this. So let this guy sit there. Show IPv6 routes. Gone. Show IPv6 OSPF neighbor. Gone. Should be disappearing pretty soon. When the dead timer expires, it's in 28 seconds, it's gonna disappear. So let's make sure we have nothing configured. IPv6 address dummy has got 11.11. Let's even delete that. Delete interface dummy 0. Run show interface. So we got nothing at all. So now, let's see if 28 seconds have expired. Yes, the data is expired and we have lost the neighbor. Now let's configure. Our interfaces on this side is Ethernet with 12::2, loopback with 222. So this OSPF will come up and it's already configured. If I configure OSPF here, set protocol OSPF v3 interface Ethernet 4.0, and then set interface Ethernet 0 address ::1/64. Commit. Okay. Run ping 12::1 2. Let's see if OSPF have come up. Show IPv6 OSPF neighbor. It's not yet up. Set protocol OSPFv3. Interface Ethernet 0. Area 0. Commit. So now it sees. Now look at the neighbor ID 000. And even though the neighbor comes up, it's not going to learn the OSPF route. Set interface dummy 0 address 11.11.64.128. Set protocol OSPF v3 interface dummy 0 area 0. Commit. The neighbor is up with a neighbor ID of 0. Therefore, it's not going to learn the route. Show interfaces 11. See, the loopback has nothing here. Now when you do show IPv6 OSPF, tell you I've got a router ID of 00. That's not acceptable, and you can't manually set it. So you're going to have to configure set interface loopback, and see this guy's not learning the 11 address. Now as soon as we do show set loopback address, let's call it 111/32. Commit. There's no way to reset the OSPF unless you reroute it. It's better to just delete it. We'll go OSPFv3. Commit. Set protocol OSPF v3 interface E0 area 0 and dummy interface area 0. Should come up with a neighbor ID 11. There you go, 111 from 000. And now we should be able to, and this is going to go dead because it's still holding on to the whole neighbor in 13 seconds. Let's go check out the routes. And there it is. So lesson learned is that you got to make sure that your OSPF router ID is configured, whether it's vyos, Cisco or Juniper for OSPF to exchange routes, even though the neighbors will come up. Some of the OSPF glitches that you gotta look out for. Hope this helps.